So we're all good to go. Thank you. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Matt. Matt Endacott went to Flinders Uni, my alma mater, but I was there a few years earlier, as I mentioned to Matt. But Matt did his Bachelor of Environmental Management in the School of Biological Science. Yeah. Matt's been working as a Green Adelaide Coastal Conservation Officer, focusing on the metropolitan coastline for 4 years, based at the city of Holdfast Bay. And prior to that, Matt worked for Trees for Life for 10 years. Matt's a keen photographer of butterflies and native vegetation. And tonight, he's going to focus on coastal butterflies on the brink and how we're conserving them. And Matt's going to discuss how his role, as well as butterfly conservation with his team, is undertaking, including recovery programs of the Yellowish Sedge skipper and the bitterbush blue butterflies.
Cool. Thanks, everyone, for having me. As Jerry said, I'm here to talk about coastal butterfly conservation. I work with Green Adelaide. Let's get this going. Nope. Slideshow happening. There we go. All right. So as you can see, I've got a bit of a stretch to cover in my role. So I'm part of the Coast and Seas team at Green Adelaide, and my role is Metro Coastal Conservation Officer, and I'm hosted by Holdfast Bay Council, but I actually am employed by Green Adelaide. We've got 2 other coastal officers who work north and south of me. So I basically work from Sellex Beach all the way to Tennyson Dunes. And then we've got a northern officer who works from Port Adelaide up to Proof Range. And we've also got a Flurio coastal officer as well. We collaborate with a number of partners along the coastline, including national parks and just councils. And we also have help volunteer groups as well. So with the slideshow that I'm giving today, I'll be showing work that we've been doing in collaboration with Alex Stalarsky from Endacott. Got this? Yeah, so most of this work that we've been doing with an entomologist along the way. So the targeted species I'm going to be talking to you tonight about include the Chequered Copper, Lucea limbaria, Diamond Sand Skipper, Antiphoda atrauba, Genoveva Azure, Agyrus Genoveva, Golden Head Skipper, Hesperilla chrysotricha, Bitterbush Blue, Theclanetes, Albicincta, Mottled Grass Skipper, Anaceta Cynone, and Yellow Sedge Skipper, Hesperilla flavescens. And I'll also talk about some of the work that we're doing with some of the host plants as well across the region. So you guys all probably know this one very well. You guys are doing a great job in Park 16 looking after this little critter. So we've got the Chequered Copper, which is the first one I was going to talk about. It's a really tiny little butterfly and lives in grasslands. And we're very lucky to have this species in the parklands that you guys look after. So some of the things that Green Adelaide have been doing recently include surveys along the Flurio coastline, right down south on private lands. Unfortunately, we've yet to come up with any sightings, but we've definitely found lots of host plants and the ant species that go with this skipper, with this butterfly. Alex has also gone out to the northern suburbs as well, a couple of locations out there, and looked for the butterflies. He's gone to the Hill Space Zone, including Burnside Council and the Waite area as well. And we've also done an extensive search in the parklands area. In that survey in the parklands area, we actually came up with 2 new populations, and we've found a population in Park 6, which is really in good condition. and another little colony in Wake Conservation Park, Wake Conservatory as well. So that's really good news to add to the data. We're probably thinking that this skipper's butterfly is more widespread than we know, just because its size. And, you know, there's reports that you guys have reported about it being in, like, you know, on a road verge on one single oxalis plant. So I think the more education, more people know about it, I think the more people will find it out there. So as you know, the host plant for this species is Oxalis perenans. There's also reports of it being on Oxalis axilis and corniculata as well. And this little copper has an obligatory symbiotic relationship with small black ants in the Iridomyrmex species. Some of the threats that Chequered Copper has include urban development, you know, knowledge of the species and its ant and host relationship. So some land managers might see Oxalis as a weed and they might spray it out, or they might not want ants in their backyard, so they might kill off ants. So the more education we get out there, which I think you guys are doing a fantastic job about, is better for the species, I think. Grassland habitat is under pressure as well. We see that all across South Australia. One thing that we've also noticed is revegetation and mulching. So inappropriate revegetation, like not knowing what's there already, and then mulching over a site as well, thinking that you're doing the right thing, but not knowing that these species are there already. And obviously pesticide use. So some of the conservation effort that's been done in the last year is just updating species distribution. Public knowledge, you guys are doing an awesome job at that. Looking at changing mowing regimes, you can see that in Park 16, and just talking to the council workers as well when we've been out there and done some of these surveys, just talking about lifting the mower up a little bit higher to 200 mil, just to reduce knocking off those host plants. And I think the more that we get this knowledge out there, we can let land managers know about the species requirements, and they might look at the site in a different way and look at these grasslands, you know, and see that the the nickel copper is actually, you know, in its prime habitat. So, you know, just leave it alone. So, okay, so I'll move on to the next one. So the next one is a pretty cool little skipper. This is the diamond sand skipper, and this butterfly we see inland and on coastal areas. It's a very small one. We see it come out twice a year, has 2 broods. And these guys you find a lot on the coastal area. We find them pretty much from Merino Conservation Park all the way down the Fleurieu. So they like that coastal heath vegetation. Some of the things that we've done is include population surveys all across the region along our coastal strip, and mainly in the Metro and Fleurieu. We haven't got anything up north. And another site that we've been looking at quite heavily is Merino Conservation Park, which had a fire in 2020, and that's a bit of a hot spot for the skipper. So what we've been doing is following up the response for its host plant after the fire and seeing if the skippers are actually using the burnt host plant to lay their eggs on. And what we're finding is 3 years down the track, they're still not really using the Garnia Lenidra as we'd hoped after 3 years. And we're finding that they're still using the old heathland rather than the burnt heathland. So, you know, this sort of information is really important for land managers like Park to go, all right, well, if we're going to burn a park, like, we need to leave pockets behind for these skippers. So we're hoping in the next year or two they'll start using it, but we're worried that the leaves of the Garnia Lenidra are too coarse and widespread, so the first instar of the caterpillars aren't silking up the leaves. That's a possibility, but yeah, the numbers are really low in the fresh regrowth, unfortunately. So here's some pictures of Merino Conservation Park. beautiful, pristine heathland. It's got all the right mix. And these are the sorts of areas where you find Antipoda traba. Have most of you been to Merino Conservation Park? Yep. It's very nice. So this is the host plant, Garnia lanidra. It's quite a spiky little grass, little tufty grass. Sticks you in your leg when you walk past it. But this is the host plant for the butterflies. It's a really important plant. This is a picture of female laying an egg at Hallett Headland, and on the left is a photo of the actual egg that it laid. So what I've seen out in the field, most of the eggs that I've seen laid are on the dead stems of the Garnia lanidra rather than the fresh stems, but that might just be coincidence. So on the left here, you can see what we call a shelter. So this is where the caterpillar hides during the daytime, and you can see that they've webbed or silked the leaves up together, and that's where it will hide, facing downwards during the day, and then at night will come up to feed. So this is the way we look for shelters when we're doing surveys on sites to see how many we've got on the site. And as you can see on the right here, that's the caterpillar of Antipoda traba. So some of the plants that we find, you could find one shelter on a plant. You could find up to 6 to 10 shelters on a plant. It's pretty specky when you find one plant with a number of shelters on it. So some of the threats for this skipper includes urban development, which is going to be all these butterflies. Fragmentation of landscape. This critter's little the main issue. We've got gaps between landscapes like Merino and Hallett Cove and then Port Standback. You've got all these little gaps in between where there's small pockets of the plants, but they've just been degraded. Post-plant propagation. So this is a really hard species to grow. You've got to make sure you've got a viable seed and get the timing right to get the seed and make sure that you treat it. So one thing that we're hopefully going to do is work with the Seed Centre of South Australia to try and get the right seed, X-ray it, make sure the seed's viable, and hopefully we can start propagating that species. But I think it's going to be a hard one to grow. Pesticide use and obviously fire. After talking about Merino, we really want to let the heath recover before anything else happens, like continuing burns, basically. So some of the conservation effort that we're doing is looking at propagation for the host plant. We're trying to improve that landscape interconnectivity between sites, like doing weed control, like Hallett Headland and Cove Point. We've got the host plants there. We're trying to improve those habitats. And we've also been looking at rejuvenating old plants using fire or slashing as well to see how the plants react on a small scale as well. Okay, so the third one I've got, Genoveva Azure. So this is a cool butterfly that you'll see way up high in the canopy flying around, and it might land, might take off straight away. You'll hardly ever see it with its wings wide open. You'd be pretty lucky to get a photo of it with its wings wide open. I'm yet to get any Agarus with its wings open. So yeah, be pretty lucky to have that. So this guy, we've done some surveys down south in the Fleurieu region and one site in the Metro region. But at this time, the surveys, we haven't come up with anything. The host plant for this butterfly is box mistletoe or Amiema bequillii, and you'll find that in like areas like conservation parks, like Alding Scrub down south as well. So one of the cool things about this butterfly, it's also got an obligatory ant relationship like your checkered copper with the coconut ants. And what they do is they will go up to the top of the tree and feed off the mistletoe during the night. and then they'll come back down and hide in the bark during the daytime. So yeah, a bit of a special butterfly, and hopefully one day we'll see that in the metro region. Another cool little one here as well, golden-haired sedge skipper. So this guy's really suffered, I think, with removal of swamps and wetland areas down south. And we've actually had surveys done right down the Fleurieu, and we've actually found force-sustaining populations in the Fleurieu region, which is pretty cool. Host plants for this species is Garnia trifida, Garnia phyllum, and Garnia cibriana. So what we've been finding them on mainly down in the Fleurieu region is Garnia trifida, which is, we've all talked about Garnia phyllum for a long time, but we're finding Garnia trifidas in very small amounts out in the field. One of the big things that we found on one of the surveys was down at Maiponga was the parasitoid wasps were really present in the pupa of these species. So that could be making a big difference on this population as well. So Garnia trifida, very much like Garnia cibriana or Garnia phyllum. We've been taking seed from a number of sites to try and collect seed and bank it in the seed centre, and working with the South Australian Seed Centre to make sure it's viable seed. We've been potting on a number of these seeds. I think we've sown on about 10,000 seeds this season, and giving it to multiple growers around the region to pot on and hopefully get out into the landscape on a number of sites as well. So cleaning the seed, as you can see on the right, I've got, they're the seed heads of some of the Garnia trifida. And on your right-hand side, a lot of the seed is not viable, the brown seed. We're really looking for that black seed that just hangs off. It's the black fruit. So you can see there's a tiny little bit like just there that you can see in there. And this takes time to clean up. And one way of, rather than just throwing in all the seed and hoping for the best, one thing that we do is we can use the X-ray machine at the seed centre, make sure that seed is viable. So on the right-hand side here, you can see some of the seed that's like that one there is not viable. But if you look at the one next to it, that's a viable seed. So out of that whole mix of that tray that I showed you before, that's all we got. It's like 600 seeds or something like that. That's a lot of time to collect, clean the seed. So you really got to make sure that that fruit of the plant is really hanging off. But hopefully we see this plant getting put back into the landscape in the metro region a lot more. So most of you guys are probably know about the bitterbush blue. Been a bit of a campaign to get this butterfly along the metro coast. As far as we know, we've got it down at Normanville Dunes, and then the most northern site is probably Torrens Island, going across to Biodiversity Park and Martin Cove area as well. So there's a big gap between there. And in 2017, Richard Glatz and David Young did a report and looked at all of the original locations of the bitterbush blue. And so that's been used by land managers and volunteer groups to plant a lot more Adrianas to try and get this butterfly back. So there's definitely been increased plantings along the metro coast. We know that we've done surveys across the landscape and looked at different sites that we work on, and there's a huge amount of plants being put out there. Volunteers and land managers, because of this, the campaign about the bitterbush blue, people are aware of this species, and volunteer groups along the coast that, they're really trying hard to get this species out there. We've got community nurseries growing these plants and giving them away to volunteer groups. Public awareness of it. We've got Bring Back the Butterflies. I've had a campaign on giving out these plants. And yeah, we've done additional surveys of these sites, looked at numbers in case we need to put more plants in to help this butterfly out. And we've reevaluated those distributions of sites as well up in the northern areas and the southern areas. So the host plant for bitterbush blue is Adriana quadripetata, or coastal bitterbush. Here you can see an egg laid on a female bud. I don't know if that's the right terminology or not, but I'm going to stick with that. So yeah, so what I've found in general, just field observations, is the females will lay their eggs mainly on the male plants. So this is the reason I took this, is because it's pretty rare for me to see in the field. So here you can see a male seed head with the buds on the top, and you can see a couple of eggs. This is generally where you'll find the caterpillars, you'll find the eggs. One thing that we're finding in our coastal community nurseries is the males are harder to grow than female plants as well. The females just grow really well, and the males really struggle. So there's a lot of sites out there where there's a lot of females, but not many male plants. So we need to kind of increase those plants. So this is probably maybe the first or second instar of larvae on the male seed head. And generally what you find is they'll hide in these buds here. So you can see like a little exit hole here. So it's probably like the first instar's probably gone inside the bud and chewed out the inside and then come outside. So then on these photos, I've just put up some pictures of the different colorations of caterpillars that you can see. And I think they just try and blend in with what the surroundings are. So you can see up the top here, they're green with the leaves, red with the buds, got the ant association hanging around the butterfly, the caterpillar as well. And then, yeah, get another green one just down here. There's just an example of the pupa of the species. And generally what you'll find is they'll go down the bottom of the bush and hide between leaf matter or bark or around the stem, somewhere underneath the plant. So some of the conservation effort that we've been doing, we've reassessed the bitterbush blue action plan and reevaluated those sites. I was told about two new sites down south in Onkaparinga weren't part of the 2017 report. And on visiting those two sites, they had a substantial amount of plants on them. One site with over 100 plants, another site with over 50 plants, and they were basically ready to go. No bitterbush present. So we actually looked at those two sites for a translocation, which we undertook in summer, and that's been really successful to date. Previously, in the year before that, we did a release of the caterpillars on another two sites at Minda and Moana Dunes, and the sites were going really well, but the plants became too stressed over summer. So I think both of those have failed. Moana we're a bit unsure about at present. Some of the threats to these guys include urban development, dependence on groundwater. There's a site out at Biodiversity Park, and they're really, where the Adrianas are, it's very different to anywhere else in the park. They're really dependent on a bit of groundwater. We got clearance of shell grit mining out north. That's a big issue. There's some sites out there where we've got people digging up shell grit right next to Adriana populations and driving through it. We got roadworks like at Biodiversity Park where they want to make the road wider for I think it's what they're doing down there, the marine area down there. And fire can also be an issue. And the other thing as well is watering as well. So watering of these species is a big thing. I think if volunteer groups are able to water them over summer and try and get them through their first summer, then they're probably going to find it's going to be more successful. So yeah, on the translocations, so we tried Minder dunes. The butterflies laid eggs after we released the caterpillars, and it was successful. And then the plants became too stressed over summer, and then they just died out basically. Moana dunes, same thing. Plants became stressed. One thing I did notice at Moana dunes that I found some Adriana plants in a park down the road about 600 metres away, and I found caterpillars on those Adriana plants, so they can definitely fly about the place. So the two other sites that we've released in Onkaparinga, one is Hackham Creek, which is right next to Onkaparinga River, and that's a remnant patch. And there's over 50 plants there, and every time I've been there, the butterflies been swarming around everywhere. So we're going to call that a success, that site. So we'll go back this summer and have another look, but it's looking really promising. And most of you probably know the Cedar Vines bike trail, the old railway line that goes to McLaren Vale. There's a long patch of Adriana that's on either side of the track there that's just recruiting like crazy. And that site as well, where we've released the caterpillars onto that site, it's booming as well. So that's really good news. So yeah, we're working with volunteer groups and teaching other staff members about these butterflies. This one's at Moana Dunes with the Friends group, and you can see here I've just got a soft pair of tweezers and just transferring a caterpillar onto one of the remnant plants on site. So this slide I gave to the open space team at Holdfast Bay Council the other day, and it sparked a lot of interest. So this is a resident in Holdfast Bay, and they're using Adriana as a sedge. You can see that down the bottom here. And in councils like Holdfast Bay, we don't have much room for additional plantings. We can't put a grove of Adrianas anywhere. So when I showed this slide and talked to the depot staff about Adriana plants, this sparked a lot of interest, and a lot of the guys came up afterwards and were actually after Adriana plants because they could find a little niche in a park to put this in. So, if you've only got a small space in a garden and you're near one of these conservation parks where you've got Adriana, this is a great example of what you can do to help this butterfly out. Okay, so I'll move on to the next one. So model grass skipper. So this is a really cool little butterfly, really tiny, and it's only out on wing for a couple of weeks a year. So you're pretty lucky to find this little guy. Speaking to one of the volunteers here tonight who takes photos as well and sees these butterflies around. So the model grass skipper, we see it inland and on the coast. And as I said, they're only on wing for 2 weeks through the year. A lot of the colonies that they live in now are now fragmented. In the Metro and Northern Plains area, we only found 4 distinct populations through the surveys. We found isolated patches of them, but they're probably as part of those populations. So historically, Grun talks about host plants being Ostrodanthonia, Ostrostipa, Poa species. What we've seen out in the field so far is them living on false brome and perennial veldtgrass. Some of the trials we've done at home, we've also put them on windmill grass and Microlina stipoides, wiping rice grass, whipping. And they've done well on those species as well. So some of the threats to these guys, once again, urban development, fire, pesticide, people walking off path. And once again, conservation work, just talking to land managers about their mowing regime, because this critter lives on native grasses and weedy grasses. So, changing your mowing regime, try not to mow when the caterpillars are out and about. And we've also done a trial translocation of this species as well. So you can see some of the eggs here. So what we've actually done is grabbed little pots and put some dry grass into these little pots, captured the females at that time of the 2 weeks, put the females in the pots for 5-10 minutes, and what they do is they dump all their eggs on the dry grass. Then what we've done is gone to another site and just basically hidden that dry grass in amongst grass that will come up. And once that grass is green, caterpillars will hatch with a flush of rain, and hopefully they're on their way. So what we've done is release those guys at Merino Conservation Park in an area that we think's suitable, and we'll go back in March next year to see how that's gone. You guys probably heard about yep.
That used to be very strong.
Yeah, that's where we got the eggs from. Yeah. So yellowish sedge skipper, or Hesperilla flavescens. So some of you may have seen this in the media recently. In the last few years, there's been a lot of work on this butterfly. Unfortunately, it became extinct in the metro region with the last population, I think, in St Kilda, from memory. And there's been multiple reports over the years. Perry Coleman wrote a report a long time ago. Chris Butcher from Nature Conservation Society of South Australia worked on a reintroduction feasibility report. And obviously, entomologist Alex Delasky has done a lot of work on this butterfly species as well, with observations down in Meningie and other areas. So I was lucky enough to come into my job when this was all happening. So this kind of like sparked my enthusiasm for butterflies, and been hanging out with Alex ever since. So this little butterfly, we got male on the left. You can see a couple of sex bands on the upper wing. And then this is a female on the right, and you can tell that with the swollen abdomen just there on the right. So these are a couple of photos just from our release dates. The eggs are really hard to find. I've never seen an egg out in the field, but on the left there we've got the larvae, and on the right hand side we've got the pupa. So one of the sites that was chosen for a release was Aldinga Washpool, and we did a release there in 2020. So some of the things that we've done since then, we've looked at post-release surveys. We've looked at using fire on the host plant. We've done post-fire surveys, done additional revegetation for the species. And so far, we've got one site that's been successful, but we've also released the butterfly in multiple sites with very mixed success. And also working with metro golf courses, and we've got Menina here from Burnell Golf Course, and we've also released them at Royal Adelaide, Royal Adelaide Golf Course. So at the Washpool in 2019, someone lit a firecracker on the side of the road into the Washpool area just after we'd finished our revegetation. The good thing about it is Garniophyllum loves a bit of fire. So as you can see on the right, these plants bounce back really well, really fresh. They were very brown beforehand. So we're very lucky to have such tolerant plants, but it was a bit of a shame at the beginning. Going into 2020, we did a field trip with a number of volunteers. I think some of the volunteers from this group, Andy Lyons, was there as well. We went down to Meningie and we collected pupae from Meningie area and sorted them out and brought them back to Adelaide, hatched them as adult butterflies, and we released a number of butterflies down at Aldinga Washpool. So what we found, we released the butterfly over here with, I think Perry Coleman was there on the release date, just over here. And you can see we've got the fire affected area here. And on the spring survey of the butterfly, we found those plants that I showed you earlier that all freshened up. You can see where where we found the caterpillars. They really loved that burnt Garnia. There's Garnia all through this site, but they chose that burnt area was a real hot spot for the butterflies. So that got us intrigued in using the fire. So I made a bit of the news. We had Andy Lyons from Butterfly Conservation SA in the local newspaper doing a release. And we had it in Onkaparinga Council newsletter. We had it in the June newsletter as well. So pretty big news, pretty exciting stuff to get this, to find that we've got it breeding on the site. So this is our latest survey of Aldinga washpool. So as you can see, the butterfly is throughout the washpool, which is fantastic news. So this is 3 years in the making of getting a skipper flying around the place. I was talking to Neil before about taking a photo of these guys. I've never been able to see one in the wild to take a photo. These are all photos that we've done on the release. But you know, areas like up here, this is all part of our re-veg. This is all part of our re-veg as well. And this is our re-veg. You know, it's hanging in there on the roadside as well, which is great news. Okay, so that's the butterfly talk. So some of the other things that us as a group at Green Adelaide have been doing and working together is mistletoe seeding trials. So some of you might know some of the butterfly species that use mistletoe. And one of them is Amiema precii, or wire-leaf mistletoe. So this species is abundant in Merino Conservation Park, and we're very lucky to have a great amount of butterflies at Merino. It's probably, I call it the hotspot of Adelaide, Merino Conservation Park. If you want to go searching for butterflies, go there. So our thought was to increase the distribution of mistletoe around the areas to help the butterfly, and you got mistletoe bird as well, have a bigger footprint. These butterflies can fly large distances anyway, but there's areas like Merino and there's areas like Hallett Cove, and we've got no wire-leaf mistletoe at Hallett Cove. So, you know, if we can get little stepping stones for these guys to get across to these sites, you know, we're helping a species out and getting across the landscape. So in total, we targeted 15 acacia species out on different sites, and we basically collected mistletoe from Merino, and we spread those on the host plants. So this was one of the species that it's at Merino Conservation Park, Satin Azure. You see it here feeding on the nectar of the mistletoe. And we've got the wood white as well. I always see it Merino as well, feeding off the mistletoe as well. So here's just an example of some of the mistletoe seed. So what we're after is the darkest red sort of colour that you could find. And then on the right there, you can just see that we've smeared the seed on the base or the top of the acacia species that we're putting on. And we'll go back next year. We've GPSed every plant, and we'll go back and see what's been successful and what hasn't been successful.
That's the mistletoe.
Yep. Some trials I've done at home. I've just done it at home and just wiped it onto specific plants, and it takes off by itself. That's why we've done this. But in the field, you'll see mistletoe birds spreading it around everywhere.
So the seed.
Yep, very sticky. Yeah. Yep. Okay, so the other mistletoe, Amiema melaleucii, I reckon this one's going to be a hard one to get going, but we've tried it anyway. So tea tree mistletoe. So this species of mistletoe has pretty much gone missing in the Adelaide region. We know of populations out north. And what we did was we targeted 3 melaleuca species across the Adelaide region, did the same thing, and we've GPSed everything to see what happens in the future. So this is just an example of Melaleuca haematorium. You can see how much mistletoe is in this plant. You got one there, one there, one there, there. In Adelaide region, so why can't we have this mistletoe growing in this space as well? That's an example of the mistletoe on the left there, and that's on Melaleuca lanceolata. That's one of the sites where we collected the fruit from. And as you can see over there on the right, that's some of the fruit that we've put out. So I think this one's going to be a hard one to get going, but we've tried. And that's the end of my talk. But if you need any other resources, Green Adelaide's got a few resources about planting plants. Obviously, butterfly conservation, Roger's site, they're full of information that everyone uses, and a couple of butterfly books as well. If people haven't got them already, grab them. That's my talk. Yes, so we've done surveys.
So we're just going to repeat the question.
Oh, yeah.
So the question from Jan was, have we had access to Port Stanback?
Yeah, so we've done a survey through Port Stanback. It's probably the biggest population of Antipida atrauba that we've got along the whole coastline. It's very continuous Garnia lanidra throughout the whole site. That's probably the main takeaway from that site. No cyanonic at all. Nothing on the quandongs in the site, and just general stuff like common grass blue, saltbush blue, painted ladies.
What's the status of that right now?
We, as a team, I don't know the status of it, but as a team, we've tried to get in there as much as we can. We've done a vegetation survey. We've done fox control because we've got hooded plovers in the site. And we've done a butterfly survey as well. We've done a reptile survey in hope that it opens up to some conservation work as well. We've also had the seed centre in there collecting rare seed as well to bank, like the euphrasia as well that's in there. So we've collected seed and we're trying to propagate that at the moment as well. It'll probably go to parks or something like that, I would say, in the future. Not that I know. No. Yeah. Yeah.
So, question from Nick.
Yep.
So what you found any like the age of games they won't stop moving, like too old?
So basically the question was when it's older, are they using that more than the fresh Garnia? Is that what you're?
Yeah. What age they stop? What age Garnia stop?
I wouldn't be able to answer that. Yeah. So basically, what we're finding is the older Garnia is quite wispy and thin, whereas the fresh stuff. This is at Merino. It might be completely different if you went to Endacott or somewhere and had post fire. But what we're finding is it's really quite coarse, and the leaves are quite spread out apart. So for a small caterpillar to silk that up together, it might be a lot harder. That's a theory that we've talked about, but it's not backed. Yeah.
Question at the back.
With ants, but it's often different ants.
The host plant, if you go up to the host plant and there's no butterflies present, you'll see ants all over the plant. Yeah, they like the glands of the plant. So I did a trial over summer with some leftover caterpillars in my backyard, and I had 5 plants in pots, and I had what did I have? I had 2 females and 3 male plants in pots, and I put 25 caterpillars on those pots. I had no ants in my yard, but they're attracted to the nectar of the plants, and I found 80 eggs. So they hatched, and I found 80 eggs on my plants in total. They disappeared, probably from wasp attack or something. I'm not sure what happened to them. But a very easy butterfly to translocate, and yeah, I don't think the ants are huge, but they do assist the caterpillar. Like I'm sure you could elaborate.
Oh, I was going to
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's meant to be a non-obligatory relation. I must admit, when you showed the picture of the head, that was actually one of the things that came straight into my mind.
Yeah.
Was that I wonder if somebody did a translocation onto that head.
Yeah.
Whether it might stick. Because there's some very good plants down at anyway.
Yeah.
But I've never seen butterfly there. You know, it is a bit of a way from
yeah. So I think if you were to do the hedge trimming, you'd have to do it like now, but winter.
Yeah.
So there's no butterflies, no eggs, no caterpillars. So they're all down on the ground in the leaf matter, and that's when you need to know what you're doing. But we have talked about going to that place and just chucking some caterpillars on out of interest. Yeah.
Yes, Mike.
Sorry. I don't know whether it's cows or not, but I don't know. Have you talked about Yellowish with the crow?
I haven't, but would you like me to talk?
Green.
Yeah, would you like me to talk about it now?
Oh, if you've got something.
Okay. All right. So we're just talking about Yellowish lithocroa. So that's an endemic butterfly to South Australia, and it's found up north in the Flinders Ranges. So Alex and I have actually tried to translocate that back into merino this year. With it was unsuccessful. The ants were there, but we only did a small trial just to see how things went, and went back there the next morning, and nothing was found. So we're not sure really what happened there. So this butterfly used to be at merino and in Ranella as well, on Acacia pycnantha, I think, back in the day, and at Belair. So that's gone extinct from the metro region. So we are looking at going back next summer and retrying that again for merino.
What's the farm name?
Yellowish lithocroa, Waterhouse's hair streak. Yeah. So we'll look. Hopefully next year I've got news to talk about with that as well.
Okay. If there's no further questions, I'll ask Jan to come up and give a vote of thanks. I'll go too far.
Well, on behalf of everyone, thank you.
Thank you.
It was fantastic to get an overview of the species and what not just what you've been doing, but also telling us about them, and then separating it out to what the threats are and what we can do and what you're doing. And it was fantastic to get everything together in one spot. We get bits and pieces from time to time, and people write articles, we put them in the newsletter, but to have that overview, I think was fantastic, and really something that was really good that we have the public talk. We have all sorts of people talking about things, but to have you come and talk about our butterflies, that's all right. It was fantastic. Really appreciate it. Brilliant. Thanks for coming. Right. And on behalf of everyone, we'd like to give you a T-shirt.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
One of our herding caterpillars T-shirts.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, so there we go.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.